So we are in for another day of, well, it's an interesting action. This is a match between two teams who are playing more for pride than anything else at this point, because truth be told, neither of them are making it to the semi-finals, even though Sri Lanka, I think, still mathematically in with a chance, but I don't see it happening. So Sri Lanka versus Bangladesh, match taking place rather surprisingly in the national capital.
Yes, there were doubts about this particular match because both teams had cancelled their training sessions because of the present air levels right now in the national capital. You know, it's for the fourth day in succession that you're looking at the severe air category in Delhi NCR, but the match anyway is now going through, and we have some news as far as the toss is concerned. Shakib Al Hasan, the Bangladesh skipper, was the one to win the toss, and he's put Sri Lanka into bat first. The Sri Lankan captain, though, after hearing that decision, was unfazed rather, because he said he wouldn't mind batting first at the Arun Jaitley Stadium because it does look like a good surface.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think the reason that Shakib chose to bowl first is because he said that when they were out there, and I don't think they had much practice because they were cancelling practice sessions, said there was plenty of dew,
yes,
which shouldn't really surprise anyone. You know what the weather is like in the Delhi NCR region. Evenings do get very, very chilly, which means that of course the onset of dew is but inevitable.
Exactly. Let's also remind you, since we're speaking of dew, you know, Dharamsala again, higher altitude and much higher as far as Delhi is concerned geographically, but then over there 5 o'clock is as early as you were seeing dew. Even in Lucknow the other day we saw dew play a role, and that's how the toss winning captain made the decision the other day when you had that match in Lucknow at the Ikana Stadium. So no surprises there. Shakib Al Hasan winning the toss, and you do expect, if not 5-6 p.m, then you do expect around 6:37 for dew to be setting in, because I won't go too far back, but I did play a match in the vicinity only, and it was around 8 o'clock that you could see some dew. And if you're looking at around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, around that time for dew to be setting in, there's good 3.5 hours of play, because you're starting the second innings. If the first inning goes the full distance, around that time only. So that's perhaps the reason why Shakib Al Hasan winning the toss and choosing to bowl first. Also knowing the target, again, that's what teams like to do, that's what captains like to do. Since speaking of the captain and the teams, let's quickly tell you the Bangladesh 11 which we have ready for you. One change over there, though, no Mustafizur Rahman today. He misses out because the captain Shakib Al Hasan said that he wasn't fit enough. In comes Tanzid Ahmad. That's the one change. Otherwise, Shane, if you could just quickly run us through the 11.
Yeah, so you've got Liton Das and Tanzid Hassan at the top of the order. Then you've got Najmal Hussain Shanto, Shakib Al Hasan, Mushfiqur Rahim, Mahmudullah, Tawad Hridoy, Mehdi Hassan Miraz, Taskin Ahmad, Tanzim Shakib, and of course Shariful Islam. So the only one change which they made, and even that was something of an enforced change, because truth be told, I don't think they would have made that change otherwise. Mustafizur, one of their more senior experienced campaigners, someone who they would have probably been able to use in a match situation like this. Pretty decent looking side, but with Bangladesh the fear always is that they're good, but do they know how good they are? Because they'll more often than not kind of live up to the potential that they have. I mean, even if you look at their batters, someone like a Mehdi Hassan Miraz, someone like a Najmal Hussain Shanto, these are good young batters.
Absolutely.
And they've done well in patches, particularly in bilaterals. But that consistency is lacking with them.
True. Consistency is lacking. Speaking of consistency, though, the one batter who's been consistent for Bangladesh happens to be Mahmudullah. Where he plays is something to look forward to, because where Bangladesh were guilty of and what was going wrong with them tactically speaking at the start of the tournament, Mahmudullah was batting way too low. He was at times coming in at 7, at times number 8 as well. Now that's too low for somebody of high caliber and quality as Mahmudullah, who happens to be the highest run getter as well for Bangladesh. The one worry though for Bangladesh would be the form that Mushfiqur Rahim is now going through. After those 2 half centuries that he got, one against New Zealand, the other against England, those are the first 2 matches of the first, those were the first 2 teams that they played at the start of the tournament, Bangladesh, after I think the Afghanistan game that they played in Dharamsala. After that, those 2 teams again, he got half centuries over there, but after that it's been a barren run for Mushfiqur Rahim, and that possibly explains why Bangladesh have really struggled at times to cope with the asking run rate, because one of the senior batters in Mushfiqur Rahim, and even those two games where Bangladesh did put in some sort of a fight in some phases, it was Mushfiqur Rahim and Shakib Al Hasan, both of whom had come together to give Bangladesh some sort of solidity in the middle overs, but that's not happening. As a result, Mahmudullah faces that pressure. He, by the way, has been coming good in pressure situations, but not the others.
Yeah, and actually, interestingly, if you remember, Mahmudullah wasn't part of the original playing 11. He ended up coming into the squad a little later on, and actually, then had a couple of good performances. So thereafter, he kind of solidified himself in the side. So definitely a key time for, I think, a lot of Bangladesh's senior pros. But the same can, in fact, be said about the Sri Lankan side, because a lot of their senior pros are not really performing.
And remember, this Sri Lankan side is coming from a very, very bad defeat, let's say, whatever you want to call it. It was a trouncing that took place in Mumbai. 55 all out for the Sri Lankan team, the 2011 finalists, defending champions as far as the 1996 champions, not the defending champions, beg your pardon. Not an ideal campaign for them. They, by the way, are mathematically still alive. Having said that, 2 changes for them, but we'll first tell you the 11s, and of course we'll talk in detail as to why you possibly saw those 2 changes. Pathum Nishanka right up top, Kusal Pereira comes back, so that's one change. Kusal Mendes, of course, the captain, retains his place. Sadira Samara Vikrama in the middle order. Charita Salanka, Angelo Matthews will be a key figure today. Dhananjay De Silva also back in the side. He was out for a couple of games. Mahesh Theekshana retains his place. So does Dushmant Chamira. You've got Kasun Rajitha and you've got Dilshan Madhushanka, who then will be the leader of the pace bowling attack, and a lot will rely as far as Sri Lanka with the ball are concerned. Of course, the bowlers will come into action much later, but Dilshan Madhushanka with his left arm pace bowling will again be the key. He's troubled teams in the past. He is in fact one of the top wicket takers in the tournament, unless I'm mistaken, and he's been doing really well.
In fact, you remember even that match against India, I think it was Madhushanka was the only one to escape with some degree of credit in the bank. Everyone else kind of got taken to the cleaners, the spinners especially, and of the pacers, it was Madhushanka. I think he got a 5-wicket haul in that production.
Yes.
So he's been really good. He does tend to be a very smart operator. Early on looks for swing, later on will kind of vary his pace a bit. Very good at getting those cutters in. So a lot will really depend on him. But again, making changes at this point of time in the tournament, very interesting. Not enforced changes either. Remember, De Silva was someone who's been kind of in and out of the side. He wasn't really doing much, now is back. Again, and you're talking about Mahmudullah's batting position being key. For me, I'm very interested in where Angelo Matthews. He's also someone who I think should probably be batting higher than 6, 7, 8, maybe 5 at most. Nothing lower than that. Because I understand Samara Vikrama is someone who's more of a middle order bat, so might not be able to drop down. That's why maybe Angelo at 5, because his quality, his proven quality is a veteran. I think his career, most people thought was all but done. Not a surprise recall, thanks to, of course, it was their skipper, Dasan Chanaka, getting ruled out of the tournament, and so far has been pretty good.
Pretty good. Remember, he was involved in those first 3 wickets as well that had fallen in that game against England, which by the way was a surprise win, when you would say, but not in hindsight because that's how badly England have played this whole campaign. Nothing really has gone this way. Sri Lanka being only one of the many teams that have defeated England in this campaign, but looking at the fact that you're playing at Delhi, and of course the bowlers will come into play much later as far as Sri Lanka are concerned, I'm interested to see how Mahesh Theekshana really goes ahead and applies his particular trade, because again, we know for a fact that he's good. He did trouble England also, I remember, in that match, but in these conditions in the national capital, you expect him to be relishing these conditions. The only one thing is how he tackles the dew.
Exactly, because again, he's someone who tends to, of course, find ways to try and do different things. I remember I think it was the match against India, he was getting tonked, so he decided to bowl seam up at one point. He was basically trying for outswing. So he's a clever operator, canny operator. That being said, these kind of conditions, I'd also be very interested to see how does he function, because he does rely on a carom ball at times as one of his variations. How effective, or how would he be able to execute a carom ball if the dew really sets in? I think that's one of the reasons they have a lot of finger spinners, really, if you look at it. Dhananjay De Silva, someone like, actually, yeah, that's pretty much it. Where are the other spinners?
I think
they had a
Asalanka can roll his arm over.
Asalanka, how can I forget? He took 4 wickets.
Exactly, against India. He'd only taken one, I remember, in the 30 odd ODIs that he'd played before, but in that one match takes up 4 wickets.
4 wicket haul, exactly. So otherwise, if you look at it, see, they had what's his name,
Himanta's out.
Wrist spinner, and they do tend to lose a little bit of control once the dew comes in. So they have 3 finger spinners. We don't know what Delhi track you're getting, truth be told. So not the worst option in the world. But again, what would be, you think would be a par total?
And this, by the way, is a Sri Lankan side that knows what it is to concede in excess of 400 over here.
Oh yes, correct. They, in fact, they even got 300 plus against Pakistan.
The good thing over here, even in that particular match, the South Africa Sri Lanka match, when you saw 400 plus runs, 428 in fact to be precise. In fact, Sri Lanka also did get to about 320, 330. It was their lower order which did contribute and came good with the bat the other time. So they know these conditions. They're not new to these conditions. It's just that today they've been asked to bat first. But even then, Delhi, you take that because it does, on most days end up being a track that does assist some sort of batting. Yes, it's a 2-pace track, one would say, but I think they've got the bowling to be able to challenge this Bangladesh side, which have largely been derailed this whole tournament.
Yeah, that's the thing. As you said, 2-faced wicket. That is, I think, the key, because again, batting first, you don't know what kind of wicket you're getting, which means assessing what a pass score would be might be a little tough. For all you know, you might get a track that's reminiscent of the Delhi of old.
Yeah.
Or you might get one that's a little bit more batter friendly, but which under right circumstances will grip a tad. You don't really know. So I'd be interested to see how the first 10 or so overs play out. Because I do think that even with Bangladesh, they do have some good spinners who can come in later. Of course, the skipper Shakib would definitely be one of those. Someone like Mehdi Hassan Miraz, also a very canny operator with his off spin. So I don't know, if I'm Sri Lanka and they're the ones batting first, I'm looking at least to start with
Sri Lanka batting first.
Yeah, I said Sri Lanka only.
Sri Lanka.
So if I'm looking at a par total, I'm seeing anything over 270, 280 is a minimum, depending on, at least that's what I'm setting my sights on at the start. May change once you know what the conditions are like.
Yeah. Again, just sampling what we've seen in Delhi so far. I think the Delhi-Afghanistan game took place here when Afghanistan scored 282 against India. So again, you've not seen a lot of 300 plus totals over here. I think it's the last match also here in Delhi, because otherwise you've seen about 3 to 4 games that have taken place.
Don't forget, England and Afghanistan also took place here, and Afghanistan got a lot of purchase.
Yes, Afghanistan got a lot of purchase. Now, if it's that particular surface, the one that, and Afghanistan were bowling second in that match, let's not forget. So maybe, but again, there was a different time. That match had taken place about 3 weeks back. Correct. Now, again, this is the onset of winters now. Back then, 3 weeks back, you're still looking at more, summer kind of conditions here in Delhi. Right now, not the case. So maybe conditions will be interesting to see, because you're taking you're seeing a match take place here in Delhi after a long time. You hadn't seen a game happen for a good couple of weeks. I wonder why that scheduling was, because you saw Delhi being in the thick of it at the start of the tournament. Most of the matches did take place here, or bulk of the matches, let's say. It was one of the active venues, so to say. Then of course the action shifted to Pune, where you had those games take place. Then Kolkata also has been in action of late, and suddenly now back to Delhi. In fact, it happened with Ahmedabad also. No games until very recently, but then you had the Australia England game take place over there.
Correct.
So you had the first game take place in Ahmedabad,
and India-Pakistan,
and the India-Pakistan match. Now you got this, of course, you got the final as well, which will be the 5th game, which will take place at the Narendra Modi Stadium.
Yeah, and also the scheduling you're talking about, I don't know, I would have personally kept a lot more matches in Delhi earlier, considering that once it's like late October, November time, that pollution smog problem does tend to come.
That actually does tell you more about this planning and how it's not been up to the expected level at all, because not only were you looking at schedule changes, remember, including the 2 matches for which the times were changed, you looked at 9 changes in totality.
Correct.
Along with the one. So it started with you wanting to put the India-Pakistan match instead of 15th to the 14th of October. In order to make do with that, you made 8 more changes, and 2 of which were time changes. Well, 2 matches. I think one of them involved England. They had to play at 2 o'clock, but instead that game was moved up to 10:30. So again, so many changes. Even then, you're telling me that you forgot to account the fact that it does get hazy, it does get smoggy here in Delhi around this time. Why would you want to keep a match in these conditions where the players haven't had enough practice, and we've seen it in the past. It's the same Sri Lankan side, by the way, which has struggled in the Delhi pollution. So they have a strong case to make in case they're not pleased with regards to the scheduling. Now's the forum, now's the platform.
Too, remember, Bangladesh too have been in the thick of things in New Delhi when, quite literally in the thick of things when you think about it, when the pollution struck, and I know a lot of them were sick as well. Not the best of times. So in a sense, you can be lucky that there is even a match going on. And to be fair, coming from outside, it has improved a tad. I'm still a bit surprised that the match is going on.
4 days, you're still looking at severe air conditions. So yeah, it's not good. Do we have the points table, Shashwat, though? Okay, we will try updating you with the points table as well. But meanwhile, since if you're joining us right now, Bangladesh, having won the toss, have elected to field. They put Sri Lanka into bat first. Shane, my colleague, feels 270 should be a good enough target, and I don't disagree with him quite a bit. So I think even with about something like 265, I think Sri Lanka should be good, because there is something for the bowlers here as well. And when you look at the Bangladesh 11, doesn't give me a lot of confidence. The fact that you've got a couple of experienced batters who are not in form, and yeah, it's been a hit and a miss. This, of course, the points table before we
and I was
conclude for
how
now.
It is that Sri Lanka were in contention. At they needed 8 points, but 8 points, if they have to get there, means they'll have to ensure that New Zealand, Pakistan and Afghanistan.
They are playing New Zealand, in fact, after this.
Yeah.
So this, of course, the 8th game, the last game is against New Zealand. And New Zealand, of course, will also want those 2 points so that they seal qualification, get to 8. Sri Lanka, though, will not just have to win today, but then have to defeat New Zealand by a huge margin, because their net run rate isn't positive. Look at Sri Lanka, it's minus 1.162. So it looks very, very difficult for Sri Lanka to be able to break into the top 4. But mathematically, anything can happen. You never know.
See, that's the thing. They need Afghanistan to lose their next 2 games, which truth be told is a possibility. They're playing Australia and South Africa. They need Pakistan to lose their last game, which is against
England.
Oh, that's also a possibility. And then they have to beat New Zealand.
Yeah.
That's a lot of permutations and combinations.
For now, though, yes, they are mathematically alive, Sri Lanka, so they might as well push for a win. And I hope they actually get to that win, because that does, just make the table a little more interesting.
Yeah.
So you never know until the last game. Not technically the last, because the last game happens to be the India-Netherlands match, but the day before that is Pakistan-England. So till the 11th of November, you actually could see, the table or the top or the third and the fourth slot still not crystallized.
Exactly.
1 and 2 at the moment, they look more or less crystallized as of now, but not the other 2 places. So just keeps the tournament alive and kicking till the 11th. Otherwise, of course, in the course of this particular week, we're looking at the last week of the round robin stage, after which it's going to be the business end. It's going to be the knockout matches only next week of the Cricket World Cup. But for now, we'll take your leave. Shane Dias, my colleague. My name is Harshit. We'll join you at the halfway stage of this match, even with the post-match and anything and everything happening in around the world of sport. Our endeavor is to keep you updated. So in case you like what we do tap that bell, do subscribe to us, and have a good day.
Bye-bye.